Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be going over how to use Google Colab with the integrated Gemini AI coding assistant and Kaggle to complete your course projects. Let's first go ahead and go to kaggle.com. Once here, if you haven't done so, go ahead and create your account. Once you have your account, we can then go up to the search bar and look for the Titanic Machine Learning from Disaster. Now this competition should be the first one in the results, and we can go ahead and click on it. Once here, you should see multiple tabs at the top. What we're looking for is the data tab. So go ahead and click on the data tab. Here you can get a decent description of what is in the different data sets, what the different variables are, and you're able to get a basic understanding of it as well as preview some of the data. So for our purposes of this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and click on the download all. Once this is done downloading, you should have a folder called Titanic, and within it you should have the different sample submission file, test file, and train file. Great, now that we have the data downloaded, let's go ahead and upload it to our Google Drive. To do this, we can navigate over to our Google Drive and create a new folder. I went ahead and did this and called it Kaggle Data. Now once inside, all you have to do is simply drag and drop the folder, the Titanic folder, into your drive, and that will upload all of your train, test, and submission files. Once your data is finished uploading, we can head over to Google Colab. To do this, we can simply right-click, go down to More, and then go down to Google Collaboratory. This will open a new and ready-to-use Python notebook for your project. Now before we begin writing any code, I do want to point out the Connect button at the top. Next to it is also a drop-down menu where we can change the runtime type. As you can see, there are a few different options available to us. The CPU, the T4 GPU, as well as a V28 TPU. Now the T4 GPU is a powerful option that is available to you for free, but it does have a limited amount of runtime that you can use it each day. So if you do need to use it sparingly. However, we most likely won't be needing that for this course, as it is primarily used for neural networks and deep learning. Now we will go ahead and click Save for the CPU, and then we can click Connect. This will start up the runtime, which will allow us to execute our code within the cell blocks of this notebook. All right, let's begin coding by mounting our Google Drive to the current runtime and notebook. To do this, we can simply go up to the first cell and start typing from google.colab. And as you can see, there is grayed out text that has appeared. What this is Google's Gemini AI coding assistant at work. It's generating the code it has predicted we want to write based on what we have already written. To use this generated code, we can simply hit Tab once, and then tab a second time to fill in the rest of the block. Once the code in the cell is finished and we're ready to run it, all we have to do is click the play button on the left-hand side. What this will do will then pop up some prompts for you to follow. All you have to do is click the Connect to Google Drive, and that will pop up some other windows in which you can choose your account. And you just keep following along the prompts until you give it access. And then once it's done, you'll see that it is finished with a green check mark once it appears. Perfect. Mounted at Content Drive. Now your Google Drive is mounted and ready to go. Now that our drive is mounted, we can import the data directly from the directory we created earlier. To do this, we can add a new code cell by clicking the plus code button under the previous code block. Now with our cursor already inside the cell, we can start typing import pandas as PD. And we'll go ahead and move to the next line. Now as you can see, that it's already filling in some extra stuff, but we don't want to use that. So we'll go ahead and start typing again. We'll do data equals pd.read.csv. So as you can see, it's already predicting what it is that we want. So we want to read in the train CSV that we uploaded. So we'll go ahead and autocomplete this. Now, this is not the directory that we had previously, and that's not the data file that we want. So we can come over here to our folder and go down to Drive, and then My Drive. And then I have mine under IDC 6210. And then here is the directory that we want to go to, the Kaggle data that we created earlier. And within that, we have the Titanic. So now we can go to the train CSV, and we can simply copy the path. Then all we have to do is come over here, highlight that, and paste it in. Now that we have it pasted in, that is the correct directory. So we can go ahead and continue filling in our code. So now that we have it read in, why don't we just do a simple inspection of it? Data.head. And to run the cell, you can either click the play button or you can do Shift Enter. And as you can see, it has successfully read in our cell and given us the head, a preview of what it is that is in that train file. Great, now that we have our data read in, why don't we go ahead and perform a quick analysis on it? So for the sake of time, I have already written out the code, and I will simply copy and paste it into this cell. Now, as you go throughout the course, you're going to learn a lot about what is written here. Most, in fact, if not all, of the imports and libraries that we're using for this comes from scikit-learn. And this is one of the most popular libraries when it comes to machine learning, especially for Python. What this is doing is simply doing a logistic regression on a few of the features within the train set. So we will go ahead and run the cell. And as you can see, it ran pretty quick. And we got an accuracy of 82%. So now with our model fitted and with an accuracy of 82%, we can go ahead and move on to another important topic of this tutorial. And that is how to export your predictions on the test data set and save them in a submission file so that you can upload it to Kaggle for your project submissions. To do this, we'll go ahead and create another new cell. And I will start by typing a comment. It says import test CSV. And I want to show is that after hitting enter, the AI coding assistant is automatically filling it in for us. Now, what this is doing is exactly what I was hoping it would do. And it's going to create the test data using the pandas.read CSV file. And as you can see, especially when we autocomplete it, it's going directly to the Kaggle data Titanic test CSV file that we were hoping for. Next, for the sake of time, we will go ahead and copy and paste over the code I had previously written for this tutorial. And all this is doing is it's taking the passenger IDs and the test data and splitting them up and doing a prediction on the test data for us. So this is how you're going to generally do this for your projects. Now, once that cell's ran, we can go ahead and create another new cell. And here is where we're going to create a submission pandas data frame. So we'll go ahead and type in submission. And as you can see, once again, it's auto-filling it for us. So it's doing pandas data frame and is creating the passenger IDs as well as our test predictions. Now to save the file, all you have to do is do the submission.csv. What this is a method within the pandas data frames that allows you to export these files into a CSV file for you. Now, one thing I want to point out is if you don't change this directory of where it's going to be saved. It will be saved strictly to the content folder here. And it will typically show up under sample data. So one thing I would recommend is go ahead and recopy the path to the Titanic folder and come down here and paste it, and make sure you add a /. That way it is within that directory. And now it will save directly to your Titanic drive in your Google Drive. That way it's a lot simpler to download, and you'll have it in the drive ready to go anytime you need it. And just for another check, we can just do another submission.head, and that will allow us to inspect the data frame, make sure it's in the format that we want as well. So one thing I want to point out too is with the submission file, so back over here on Kaggle, as you can see, the passenger ID and the survived are the column names. So whenever you're submitting a file, make sure that your column names within your data frame and your CSV file match those of the sample submission files. Otherwise, whenever you upload it to Kaggle, it might throw an error for you, and you'll have to go back in and edit those files. So now we can simply run this, and sure enough, we have our predictions and we have our passenger IDs. And just to do another quick verification, we can come back to our drive, and sure enough, there is our submission CSV file. And now that we have our submission file, I want to go ahead and do a little bit of housekeeping. So for our notebook, as you can see, it is currently untitled. To simply rename it, right click and click rename. And for this example, we will do Titanic example and hit enter. Now you can also rename it within the notebook itself by going up to the top left, clicking on it, and renaming it whatever you want. Since we already redid that, I will go ahead and close that out and reopen it with the new name. And there we are. It is renamed to the Titanic example. Now, during your journey of using the Google Colab environment, you might run into a time where a Python package might be out of date or not installed at all. To handle this, we can use what are known as magic commands. And the most common one is probably going to be the exclamation point. And what this does is it allows you to use commands that you would typically type into your terminal or command line interface and just run them within the code cells themselves within your notebook. So for example, in this case, we will do a pip install of torch. And all you have to do is type pip install torch and then go ahead and hit run. And as you can see, most of the requirements are already met for torch, but it looks like there are some upgrades available as well. So we will let this run and download. All right, great. It has successfully been installed and is ready to use. Now, I also want to go ahead and show you guys how to download and submit your submission file to Kaggle. So we can go here to more actions and click the download, and that will download it to most likely your downloads file, unless you have it set for somewhere else. Then we can take that and go over to the Kaggle, and simply you can either drag and drop it, or I typically go to the browse files to submit, and you just select your file and click upload. And there you are. Then after that, all you have to do is click submit. And there you have it. That is how you go from getting the data from Kaggle, downloading it, uploading it to your Google Drive, importing it into your Colab notebook, processing it, getting your predictions and submitting your predictions to the Kaggle for your projects. Thank you all for listening to this tutorial, and we're looking forward to having you in the class.